Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Boro Tailgate Talks. It is me, one of the two co-hosts that actually decided to show up today. It is me, Alex, along with AJ today. AJ, how you doing today?
I am doing amazing.
Holding the mic today because it was being weird, so we're just going to roll with it today. So, got a good episode lined up today. We're going to quickly talk about some MLB, NHL, and NBA stuff. Get through it real quick. And then there's going to be a pretty football-focused episode, so we're going to get right into it. So I'm just going to blow through these real quick. First up, 2021 first overall pick from the Pirates, Henry Davis, got called up to the pros, and at his first at-bat, smacked a double, which is pretty cool. Dude was batting 1,000 and at his first at-bat. Too bad we lost to the Cubs 8-0, so it didn't really matter. NBA and NHL, the Golden Knights and the Nuggets both completed the gentleman's sweep on the Panthers and the Heat. So they both won their series 4-1 to win their respective titles this year. Jokic finally got a ring, and the Knights win, I believe, their second Stanley Cup since their conception in the late 2010s. Now that junk's out of the way, we're going to be talking about some NFL stuff today. So we're going to both cover our division predictions real quick. I'm going to be doing my division predictions for the AFC North, as it's my favorite division. He's going to be covering the NFC North since he's a Packers fan. So we're going to get into it. AJ, I will let you go first. You can have the mic.
All right. Well, to start, Jordan Love is the greatest quarterback of all time. I will tolerate no Jordan Love slander on this channel. But real talk. Last place in the division for me easily has to be the Bears, the Chicago Bears. I don't see much upside on their roster. Their defense is atrocious. They don't have any star players on their defense except maybe outside Eddie Jackson, but you could even argue he's just a solid role player now. On the offense, it all comes down to Justin Fields. And can he take that big step next year? Personally, I don't think so. I think he relies too much on running. There were 36 quarterbacks that took at least 200 snaps this NFL season, or at least attempted 200 throws, and Justin Fields ranked under 32nd in all of the passing categories: yards, completion percentage, quarterback rating, touchdown interception ratio. He was getting outplayed by backups, people. He's not that good. And I understand that, he's got some help now. You gave him DJ Moore. You drafted him another offensive lineman. But that doesn't help him progress through his reads any more than he does. It's not going to change his time in the pocket, him being able to just scramble. He can scramble well. He's an electric player, and he's great to watch. He's a great fantasy player because, all those rushing yards and touchdowns. But when it comes down to quarterback efficiency, he doesn't play like a quarterback. He needs to step it up. I just personally don't think he will. Second to last in the division, I have the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think the Vikings are handling the roster as best that they could. I think it's exciting because they have Justin Jefferson, and obviously he's the best receiver in the league right now, I would say. Yeah. And they just got rid of Dalvin Cook. But to be fair, he was on the decline. He was still 1,000-yard back, but he was on the decline. His efficiency rating and elusiveness and broken tackles and yards expected after contact all dropped off a cliff, and it saved them a lot of money, not having to resign him. Yeah. So I understand it from a management point of view. Offensive line's good, but they need to be focusing on defense, and a lot of their targets this year in the offseason and free agency and the draft were on offense. They used their first round pick to select Jordan Addison, which is a good pick. I think he's gonna be a good receiver, especially with Justin Jefferson on the other side of the ball, taking away double teams, creating one-on-one opportunities. That's perfect. That's the best possible spot for Jordan Addison. And KJ Osborne is one of the most underrated third receivers in the league. Yeah, he really is. He could be a number 2 on most teams, and he's a number 3, and he produces well constantly. It's exactly what you want out of a number 3 receiver. But on the defensive side, they lost 3 starting cornerbacks, and I believe they only signed 1. I'm pretty sure they only signed Byron Murphy. Now, I actually mentioned that. You know what, right. I mentioned that earlier in the car. I mentioned it in the car. I'm like, where did he go? Because he was in the Cardinals. But I'm pretty sure he went to the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right.
They traded away Zadarius Smith, so now their only true pass rusher is Daniil Hunter. He's getting old. They have Harrison Phillips at D tackle, and I'm pretty sure they have Dalvin Tomlinson as well.
Yeah.
Extremely old defensive line. I think the youngest player there is 28, outside of probably an unproven edge player because they got rid of Zadarius Smith. You're always going to be happy when you have Eric Kendricks. He's a top 3 coverage linebacker in the league, along with Jordan Hicks, who is a good supplement to that. But in the secondary, Lewis Seen, he was hurt most of his rookie year, so this is technically his rookie year. Completely unproven player.
He was on the Georgia Bulldogs defense. He could be good.
He was, and we'll give him the benefit of the doubt for now, but we still got to see something. Harrison Smith, the ageless wonder, is still playing strong safety for them.
Yeah, he is. The hitman's still going, man.
But yeah, they lost 3 starting corners. They lost. I'm pretty sure they lost Mike Hughes. I don't think they re-signed him.
Yeah.
They let Patrick Peterson go, and then they let Cam Dantzler go. So right now their 2 starting cornerbacks are Byron Murphy and Andrew Booth, who also missed all of last year due to injury. Completely unproven secondary. I think he was Clemson, but they were 12-0 in one-score games, and that's an impossible stat to recreate year in and year out. That basically just comes down to luck.
That actually, bouncing off a statistic that I saw, the Steelers went 9-8, but they had a better point differential than the Vikings did.
Yeah.
Which I think's kind of crazy.
Because the Vikings, they don't force turnovers. They never.
Exactly, yeah.
They don't force turnovers.
The Steelers had a better point differential than the Vikings, and they won 4 less games than the Vikings did, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I just think the Vikings are one of the most overrated teams, and like Kirk Cousins is like a top 15 to 10-ish quarterback.
Yeah, I agree.
You're not gonna lose because of him, but you're also not gonna win because of him. He doesn't elevate the roster. He just allows them to, do their thing. He's a distributor of the football. And I guess that's all they really need, but at the same time, they need help on defense. And Justin Jefferson can carry them, but only for so long. They also need a run game, and Alexander Madison's no slouch.
No.
He's a serviceable back. He's what you want out of a number 2 back. But that's just the thing. It's a number 2 back. They don't have, like, an electric runner to actually fortify the run game. So they're either gonna pass a lot or they're gonna run a lot, and it's gonna suck. And I just don't think that's a recipe for success. Now at third, I have second. I have my Green Bay Packers, and these last 3 teams in the division, I feel like are actually kind of interchangeable. I feel like it could go anyway if
the Vikings, Packers, and the Lions.
If Justin Fields takes that step up and DJ Moore breaks out again, well, I mean, he's already kind of a solidified receiver, but if he shows himself to be like a top 15 kind of guy, I could see the Bears winning 9-10 games, being second in the division. Right now, as I think the Bears are, I think they'll win 6 or 7 games, maybe.
I was gonna say, I think they'll be better.
Yeah, I
think they'll improve. I think their ceiling is probably 7 or 8 wins max.
I think their ceiling, if Justin Fields really takes like a Hurts or Josh Allen 3rd-year good jump, is 10-7. I think they could win double-digit games.
In a weaker NFC, I could see it.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the Vikings and the Packers. I think both of them are going to be around 500, 8-9, 9-8, somewhere around there.
Yep.
This is one of the worst divisions in football just because of how much uncertainty and turnover there is from last year. But going back to the Packers, Rodgers didn't play too well last year.
No.
I blame a lot of that season on him. I mean, we missed the playoffs. I mean, it was bad, and you can't put it all on Rodgers because like Rashawn Gary was hurt, Jair Alexander missed the first half of the season. Christian Watson didn't start getting going until like halfway through because he was also dealing with some hamstring injuries, and once he did, led all rookie receivers in touchdowns, if you include rushing and receiving touchdowns.
Yep.
He's an amazing after the catch threat, amazing deep threat. He's 6'5" and has Tyreek Hill level speed. It's insane physically just what he can do. But he's got to stay healthy. But going back to Rodgers, he sold us a couple games. He sold us in the Patriots game where he threw 2 interceptions to Jack Jones, who is now facing 30 years in federal prison. He he threw 3 interceptions this year to Kirby Joseph of the Detroit Lions, who we're going to talk about. Kirby Joseph owned him. He single-handedly beat Green Bay. 2 red zone picks for him this year against Green Bay, where we lost our first game 7-14, and we lost the second one in the final game of the season to miss out on the playoffs. Rodgers didn't play like a normal Rodgers, and I was actually kind of happy that we traded him. I think we got a lot for him, considering where he was in his career. We moved up our first-round pick, got a second-round pick, and if he plays 60% of his snaps this season, we get another first. I'm never going to say no to 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
But now it all comes down to Jordan Love, who we've seen frighteningly little from. He's come in a couple games. I think he's had 3 starts in his career now. 2 of them were Week 17, meaningless Week 17 games. I'm pretty sure he lost both of them, but we also didn't start any of our starters in those ones. And in the first game that he actually started was during the COVID season. Aaron Rodgers had been diagnosed with COVID 3 days before the game. So Jordan Love had 3 days or 2 days of snaps with the first team. And he had to go into Arrowhead and fight Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And we only lost by 4 points, I believe it was.
Yep.
He outplayed Mahomes. He had more yards, same amount of touchdowns, higher quarterback rating. And maybe it's because they dumbed the offense down for him. But in his one true actual start, he played well. Is that going to translate over? We don't know. Apparently he's throwing a lot of interceptions in OTAs and practice and minicamp.
He played well against the Philly defense this past season.
He played well in that fourth quarter. I agree. He had 150 yards and a touchdown. But to be fair, that was just like one crossing route to Christian Watson, who just outran the entire defense.
Yeah, he's a track star. I can't say.
He is. But offensive line is finally getting healthy again. You have the best pass-blocking left tackle in the league in David Bakhtiari. You have one of the best guards, an all-pro guard in Elton Jenkins.
I was going to say, he's such a dog.
As good as Josh Myers has been, I would still wish they would have picked Creed Humphreys. Literally the pick before Creed Humphreys went to the Chiefs. The Packers took Josh Myers, center from Ohio State. And he hasn't been bad. He's been like a top 10-ish like center, but I mean Creed Humphreys has been top 3.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say it's pretty hard to go wrong with an Ohio State offensive lineman most of the time. A lot of them turn out really well.
True, but we have some uncertainty at the right side of the line. Right now we have Josh Neiman starting at right tackle, and
I don't even know who that is.
he's been pretty serviceable. When Bakhtiari went down,
Yeah.
he stepped in. When Jenkins went down, he even slid in and played guard. He's just a very versatile offensive lineman. But the right guard is a battle between John Runyon and Royce Newman, and neither of those options really intrigue me. I think John Runyon's the better overall player, but I mean they're day 3 draft picks for the most part, so their upside is very limited. In terms of weapons, we're hoping to see another like a true Christian Watson breakout where he can be healthy the full season, and we can just see him play because he is electric.
Get Romeo Doubs rolling like he was at the beginning of the season.
Romeo Doubs, he's had catch issues. He had catch issues a lot last year. He dropped a lot of balls. He even fumbled a couple. He fumbled one in overtime, I'm pretty sure, and we lost the game because he fumbled it.
Nothing like Packers receivers fumbling in overtime.
Drake London still fumbled more balls this season.
Yep.
That's a shot at you Falcons fans. But yeah, no. We even drafted receivers like Jaden Reed. We got him in the second round.
Michigan State receiver.
Michigan State. He's been looking promising as like a slot guy. So right now our starting receivers would be Watson, Doubs, and Reed. We would also have Samari Toure as our 4th receiver. He was an undrafted pickup a couple years ago, but apparently he's been impressing coaches. He's also played a little bit of corner in practice. I don't know how that's going to affect anything. Along with Keyshawn Nixon, our returner. He's listed as a cornerback, but he got put in some jet sweep plays in OTAs. Matt LaFleur's been impressed with his ability with the ball in his hands, which is only fair. He is our punt and kick returner.
Yeah.
But 2 new tight ends coming in. Luke Musgrave was one of them, I'm pretty
Great
sure.
draft pick. I liked a lot of the tight ends in this draft class this year.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about double dipping on tight ends. I mean,
Yeah.
we needed them because we let go of both Mercedes Lewis and Robert Tonyan, and the only tight end left on the roster was Josiah DeGuara, who is pretty much a glorified fullback anyway.
Yeah.
Awful third-round pick back when that happened. But it's good to get some youth in on the offense. Our offense is extremely young for the most part. Running back Aaron Jones is always consistent. He's probably a top 10 receiving back, I would say.
Yeah.
Threat out of the backfield on screens, RPOs, things like that. And AJ Dillon is probably the best second running back in the league right now, depth chart wise.
Yeah.
Now that Kareem Hunt is no longer on the Browns.
Say him and if JK's healthy for the Ravens this year, Gus Edwards would probably be the only other notable one.
Yeah, so probably the best running back room in the league as a whole, at least,
Yeah.
not including how they fit into the scheme, just like base players. On the defensive side, I think it's going to be a lot prettier. It was the first year for our new defensive coordinator, Joe Barry. He ran a very heavy cover 4 defense, the Fangio style defense, as everybody loves to call it. And offenses are kind of just catching up to it. They know how to counter it now. The quarterbacks are getting smarter, and they're understanding how to read a 2 safety drop, at least with the type of stunts that are run.
Yeah, and quarters just leaves a lot of soft spots underneath.
Yeah, it requires extremely smart players to
if you
run.
It out and you go 5 wide, you're gonna take advantage of it pretty hard.
Yeah, exactly. It's also not a very good defense against the run,
Not at all. No.
which has been the Packers' issue for the last 5 years, probably. Biggest issue is run defense.
Yep.
But the D-line is actually starting to finally look up. We have Rashawn Gary, who's like a top 5 to 10-ish pass rusher.
Yep.
Extremely underrated, I feel like. He doesn't get enough credit, but he was also... Oh, excuse me. He was also extremely... He tore his ACL last year, I believe. Or he did something to his leg and missed the second half of the season. And Kenny Clark at D-tackle, always solid. He's not a game changer like he once was when we paid him to be the highest D-tackle in the league, but he's still a very solid starter, and you can't complain. Along with Devontae Wyatt and TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt being our first-round pick from last year, our second first-round pick from last year. It looks like he's been taking some pass rushing steps up, whereas TJ Slayton has been filling more of a run defense role for more of a third and short, second down kind of role, early downs. It looks like he's getting most of the work. Along with drafting Lucas Van Ness, 13th overall.
Forgot about that.
At first, I didn't really like it because I thought we needed bigger things like safety or cornerback because...
Or one of the receivers on the board.
Or a receiver, yeah. Taking Addison or Quentin Johnston or even JSN, I would have been extremely happy with at 13 because we just, lack of star power. But I've kind of come along on the idea because of situations like Rashawn Gary getting hurt and Preston Smith taking steps back, who it was the pass rusher before. I assume Van Ness will probably take over most of that position by year's start, if not like midway through the season. So D-line's looking fine. As far as the linebackers go, you have Preston Smith as like your either right or left outside linebacker. The Packers run a lot of nickel and dime, so they usually only put 2 linebackers on the field. And they're more akin to putting 3 corners on the field.
Yeah.
So they'll have Preston Smith be a pass rush, and they'll put Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker in the middle of the field. Devondre Campbell took a big step back from his all-pro year, but he is still a serviceable linebacker. He's not going to blow you games, but he's also not going to change anything. Quay Walker is a freak of an athlete, and while I hated the pick at the time, after seeing his rookie year, he played pretty well, except for his blow-up in the...
Quay, I shove trainers Walker.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. That was extremely embarrassing as a Packers fan, and I'm sure for him too. But outside of that, he was an extremely good coverage linebacker last year, and he's just a freak athlete. As for the corner depth, Jair Alexander finally comes back, and he's a top 3 corner in the league. And then outside of that, you have Rasul Douglas, who is a smart veteran cornerback who can play the cover 4 system like they wanted to. You don't want to put him in man-to-man because he is just not an athlete at this point in his career. Although he usually plays in the slot, so you don't necessarily need him to be an athlete. You just need him to be smart, which is what he is. And then on the other outside corner, we have Eric Stokes, who I thought was an overdraft at the time, but he's kind of impressed me with his man coverage ability. I thought he was going to be a lot worse in man coverage, but he's shown a lot more twitch and reactiveness than he showed in college at Georgia. Safety is where our defense kind of falls apart, though. We let Adrian Amos go, and we didn't re-sign or draft anybody to replace him. So right now our safety room is a mixture of Darnell Savage, who had a down year. He's still potential because he's got 2 years left on his contract, I believe. But he did not play up to his standards. And Rudy Ford is our other strong safety right now at the moment, along with Keyshawn Nixon, who's played corner, wide receiver, and safety. He's just an athlete for us. I think he's going to be a gadget player, which is cool to think about. But we don't have another safety.
Yeah.
And then for the first time in forever, I'm going to talk about special teams because Mason Crosby finally retired after 20 years of being the Packers kicker. So now we don't even have like a proven kicker. So
Mason Crosby hasn't been a proven kicker like the past 2 seasons anyway.
Yeah, I always look back to that Bengals game, and where he missed 5 field goals. Yeah, it was awful. But yeah, I think the Packers are gonna go like 8-9, 9-8, be second in the division. But I for first in the division, I don't think that anybody's surprised. The Detroit Lions.
Let's go Lions.
I know as like a fan of a team in a division, you're supposed to hate all your other rivals. I have never hated Detroit, at least in the ways that I hate like Chicago and Minnesota. Detroit, I've always felt bad for Detroit. Even like all Detroit sports, there's just a curse in that city.
Yeah, the
and
Pistons, the Tigers,
all of them.
all terrible.
Not anymore though. They have the Lions to look forward to now. Dan Campbell is the truth.
He is the truth.
Dan Campbell came in, bit kneecaps. He was in, and the players, they all bought it. It's amazing to see that how much one person can change an entire culture.
Yeah.
But going to the roster, insanely underrated offensive line.
Unbelievably underrated.
When they landed Penei Sewell, that might have been the steal of that draft.
Yeah.
It was insane. Oh, at least at the time. I guess Jamar Chase now was the better pick, but 2 different players at 2 different positions doing 2 different roles.
Okay, so Frank Ragnall's one of the best centers in the league.
He's only like 27 too. They've got him for a long time.
Yep.
The rest of the offensive line is just solid role players. Oh, they have Taylor Decker, don't
They
they?
do. Taylor Decker's coming into his own. He's not too bad.
He has been a reliable left tackle. Did they move him to right tackle? Because Sewell was hurt a little bit last year, I think.
I believe they did end up moving him to right tackle, yes.
Yeah, so Sewell plays left tackle, Taylor plays right tackle, which is exactly what you want.
Yep.
The reality is you only really need 2 good tackles and a center for offensive line.
Yeah.
Because there aren't as many like interior pass rushers that can just blow past guards. As for the rest of the roster, Jared Goff is probably the most underrated quarterback in the league. Dude is insane. Him coming over from the Rams, I felt like he got disrespected so much.
He did.
Stafford at the time was a better player, but the way they just shipped Jared Goff out of LA kind of just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth, I feel like. And he's really proved himself, so much so that they didn't take a quarterback when they had the opportunity to.
Yep.
They very easily could have traded up a couple spots and taken Anthony Richardson, who was an athletic freak. But they decided to bolster the roster. They believe in Jared Goff, so much so that they traded back and took Jahmyr Gibbs, and a second-round linebacker in the first round, which was a reach.
Campbell, I think.
Yeah, it was a reach, but he's still a good player. You're not going to be upset with it. So they traded away DeAndre Swift to the Eagles. So now Jahmyr Gibbs is the premier running back, along with David Montgomery
From the Bears, yeah.
from the Bears, because they let Jamal Williams go to the Saints, who was the first player in NFL history to wear number 0. Cool fun fact.
Him and Calvin Ridley are both going to be wearing it, huh?
Yeah. Totally off topic about the Detroit Lions. Did you know, like, I was looking at one of those age comparison things, like crazy age comparisons in sports. Calvin Ridley is the same age as Amari Cooper. They're both 27. That's.
Aren't they both Alabama receivers, too?
I'm pretty sure they were.
Yeah. Yeah, because was it Calvin Ridley or was it Riley Ridley who caught the game-winning touchdown to Natty from Tua?
I have no idea.
I think it was Calvin Ridley. I think it might have been. I think he's the one that caught that 2nd and 26 touchdown in overtime to beat Georgia.
Yeah, no, I just saw that. That was crazy.
That is
Because
crazy.
you think of Amari Cooper as this, like, old veteran. You think of Calvin Ridley as this up-and-coming guy that just was suspended last season.
Really good when he's played.
Yeah, he was a great compliment to Julio Jones at the time. But anyway, back to the Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best number 1 receivers in the league. He does exactly what that team needs him to do, being the alpha, can run any kind of route receiver. Jameson Williams was hurt, missed almost all of last season, but in the short sample size that we got, he was an elite deep threat. Now he's gambling and might not play the season. I don't know if he actually got official suspension time,
I'm not sure either.
but I mean, if he's there for half the season and only misses 6 games, that's 11 games of an elite deep threat with Tyreek Hill level speed. Insane what kind of an athlete he is. I'm actually not sure who their third receiver is now that I'm thinking about it.
I was just trying to think about it. Yeah, I can't remember either.
They drafted one of the tight ends.
Yeah, they did.
I forget which one because...
Sam Laporta.
Yeah. All the tight ends in this draft class were pretty good, so
Yeah.
nothing to complain about.
Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer.
Mhm.
All of them were
Luke
pretty
Musgrave,
solid.
all of them.
Musgrave.
Yeah. Exactly what they needed. I mean, Zane Zylstra is a cool story, but, like, that's not a starting tight end. You needed somebody, and you got him. On the defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, who should have been the first overall pick,
Yeah,
but
which is crazy.
but Jacksonville's kind of stupid. But no, I mean, he played extremely well. His sack totals weren't very good at the beginning of the year, and he wasn't getting a lot of pressures. He really turned it up in the second half of the year, and showed some improvement, which is exactly what you wanted out of him. D tackle, the defense. I mean, it's just a bunch of solid role players. And
Malcolm Rodriguez is a solid gem.
he is. Well, he was drafted really late, wasn't he? Wasn't he like 5th or 6th round?
Yeah, linebacker.
Yeah.
He's really solid. He's really coming into his own. He was great to watch on Hard Knocks.
Yeah, and now you've got Jack Campbell at the middle, who, while it was kind of a reach at the 18th overall pick, he was the best coverage linebacker in the draft. So they picked the position that they need, and there's nothing wrong with that. Cornerback-wise, a little bit of a question. They traded away, what's his name? Jeff Okuda for a 5th-round pick. Kind of a steal for the Falcons.
Yeah, crazy value for the Falcons, honestly.
They're going to have to pay him, but who cares? I'd take that for a 5th-round pick. They were the ones that signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, which is an amazing signing, along with already having Kirby Joseph, who I mentioned earlier about just being Aaron Rodgers' father. But he was crazy. He was one of the best coverage safeties, had very few busts in coverage. He was insane. And, last year, Detroit had a historically bad defense. They only added to it. They made it better. And I think it's going to be a lot better now, especially with the offense coming into, 3rd year now with Jared Goff, Dan Campbell. I think we're poised for kind of 10 to 12 win season from the Lions, but barring any crazy injuries, of course. any team could lose their quarterback and end up losing out for the rest of the season. But as the roster sits now, I think they're poised to win first in the division.
Yeah.
And now, on to Alex with the AFC North.
Alrighty. So I ended up using NFL season predictor the other day, so I'm actually just going to use that. So I'm going to give some records here. AFC North, first of all, is a really, 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 really solid division.
I think it might be the
best. It might be the best division in the NFL right now, quite frankly. I mean, genuinely, like, the way I have it stacked up from this playoff predictor that I did, Browns are finishing in last place. I feel like this is kind of the general overall consensus is, yeah, Deshaun's been a lot better this year than he was last year. The coaches are saying he's significantly, like, miles ahead of where he was this time last year. But still, I think they have a pretty tough schedule overall. Obviously, they have to play the AFC North for 6 total games. So I have them winning 8 games, that's absolutely bonkers to win 8 games and finish last in the division. I mean, you were just talking about the Packers winning 8 or 9 games and being second place in the division. So that just goes to show, Deshaun will probably more than likely improve. People forget that this guy was a legitimate MVP candidate, was poised to, win Offensive Rookie of the Year and shatter every rookie quarterback passing record. Everything. He was a very, very, very talented quarterback before he started holding out and then all the allegations. So he could definitely get better. I think for the draft picks they had this year, they got a lot better. Luke Whippler was a great late-round pick. If Deshaun has any health injury concerns, because he has torn an ACL more than once, I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson was a fantastic 5th-round pick. They've got Amari Cooper. I believe they still have David Njoku. Or did they let him go?
No, they re-signed him.
They re-signed him. They let go of Austin Hooper, though.
But they also traded a 3rd-round pick for Elijah Moore.
They did trade the 3rd-round pick to the Jets for Elijah Moore. So they have Amari Cooper. They have Elijah Moore. They have David Njoku. They still have a really solid offensive line. They have Nick Chubb, obviously. Defense is pretty solid. Denzel Ward will continue to be another corner that we forgot to talk about earlier. Another very good corner in the league. Grant Delpit's a really good safety. J.O.K. hasn't really made any noise yet, but he's a very talented linebacker that could make some noise in the NFL. So, this is a good football team. I just don't know if they necessarily have yet what it takes to really compete for 1st or 2nd place in this division. 3rd place, Pittsburgh Steelers. We will get to them even more in depth once I finish the division predictions. I have them going 11-6, finishing 3rd in the division and missing the playoffs, which is absolutely absurd. Just also a precursor, this is heavily based on Lamar staying healthy and the Ravens playing as well as I think they can. So I'm going to just preface that. Next, 2nd place in the division, Cincinnati Bengals at 12-5, 1 game above the Steelers. Joe Burrow's a really good quarterback. They kept Joe Mixon, who I think is still capable of being a good running back as long as he doesn't shoot at children in his front yard. Really solid. I think that offensive line's only going to get better because they're going to be healthy again. Hopefully they stay healthy this time. This is like the 3rd try of them having a better offensive line to stay healthy. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd are, to me, by far the best receiving core in the league. They are a fantastic combination, and that's going to be the one struggle is how you're going to pay all of them, which is going to be coming up soon. You have to pay Burrow. You have to pay Chase. You have to pay one of those guys to be your number 2. Presumably T. Higgins, he's younger than Boyd. He's better than Boyd, You're going to have to try to find a way to pay all those guys. Defense did lose Jesse Bates, but I think they're a really solid, scrappy unit in that, they could still be good enough for Joe Burrow to just put the team on his back and keep going. And then number 1 in the division, I have the Baltimore Ravens going 14-3. I don't think their schedule is overly difficult outside of the division. I think a healthy Lamar Jackson, who is now the highest paid quarterback in the league, will be playing with renewed confidence because his team has confidence in him. Odell is still very capable of playing some good football, in my opinion. He was on track to have a Super Bowl MVP at the end of the Super Bowl if he didn't tear his ACL in the 2nd quarter. I think people are severely underestimating how good Zay Flowers can be in his first year in the league. He's really, really solid. He's a great receiver. He's a great route runner, and he's a good complement to Odell. Rashad Bateman is also coming into his second or third year in the league. He could be really solid. Offensive line, really good. You've still got left tackle. What's his name? Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. Tyler Linderbaum is going to be a really good center. He's doing nothing but improving. They're going to be really set there. Defensive line is really, really solid. Linebacker is even pretty decent. I think if Patrick Queen can just make a tackle, he could be a solid linebacker for them. Roquan's obviously there now. He's really good. Now that Roquan's there, I think Kyle Hamilton will have some pressure taken off of him because Roquan is such a force in the middle of the field. Marcus Williams at free safety, fantastic. That safety tandem could be really, really good. They could be one of the best safety tandems in the league, actually, in my opinion. Marlon Humphrey at corner. I believe Marcus Peters is gone, but still you've got Marlon at cornerback 1. He's really, really good. So it's an overall really well-rounded team. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards at running back as long as J.K.'s healthy. This could be a really good football team. They could win the division, and in this case, in this prediction, win 14 games in the 1 seed. You know, they could be really, really good.
There is a slight issue with the Ravens right now. J.K. Dobbins is currently holding out of all practice.
Is he holding out right now?
He's holding out for a new contract.
Oh, my goodness. That's crazy. So I guess we'll see what they do about that. Going back to the Steelers, we're going to talk about them in depth a little bit more. I'm expecting Kenny Pickett to take a step up. I charted some of his stats. I charted his stats before and after the bye week this past season earlier today. So in his first couple games, his first 5 games, as these are all games that he started, by the way. We're not going to count the Ravens game where he went 0 for 1 and then came out of the game because Dan Moore held and still let Kenny get a concussion somehow. So in his first 5 games, he went 112 for 165 for 960 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 8 picks. We were scared. We were very scared. He still completed a high percentage of passes. He completed 67.8% of his passes, but again, 2 touchdowns to 8 picks is really bad. The Steelers went 1-4 of that stretch with him as the, I say starter, but to be fair, he came in late against the Jets, but I'm still counting that in there because he played a good bit of the game. But then, after the bye, he went 133 for 223. His completion percentage did dip pretty hard. It went from 67.8 to 59.6. But he threw for 1,400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 1 interception, which is a lot better. The Steelers went 6-1 in that stretch. They lost the game to Baltimore, which they probably should have won in that time period. But again, that was the game that Kenny was out, so it doesn't really matter for his stats. But he got a lot better after the bye. The team has gotten better. Broderick Jones, trading up in that spot, trading up from 17 to 14 with New England to get Broderick Jones was a great pick. Joey Porter Jr. fits exactly. He's not the highest ranked corner from this class. I had him ranked like 4th out of all the corners in this class. But Joey Porter Jr. perfectly fits what the Steelers do. They come out there, and they'll come out and cover 1. They'll man you up, and they'll just beat you up on the football field. They want to rush 4, play man press, and just bully you off the football field. And they're good at it. When they have the guys, they're good at it. So, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, arguably the best edge rushing duo in the league. Keanu Benton and Cam Hayward would be fantastic in the middle of the field. Linebackers, a little bit of a question mark, but I think that the unit could be really solid. Joey Porter Jr. and Patrick Peterson on the outsides. Pat Pete's old, but he had a great season last year, and I think he's still got some juice left in the tank. And I think Joey Porter Jr. will quite frankly end up becoming cornerback 1 at some point during this season, even if it's late. Minka, obviously, is absolutely incredible. You can afford to spin someone down because Minka, let's be for real, Minka Fitzpatrick is not going to let you throw the seam when TJ Watt is pass rushing at you. It's not going to happen. He's going to pick you off almost every time. So it's going to be him, and I believe not Darnell Savage, DeMonte KZ, more than likely that Terrell Edmonds is gone. That'll be a solid safety tandem. Obviously, Minka's the better one of the two, but the defense is really good, and they'll continue to do what they're good at, which is stopping the run and getting off the football field. I think Keanu Benton is really important to that because the Steelers were not very good at stopping the run last year, and it really hampered them a lot. So defense, I believe, will carry this football team again, even though Kenny Pickett will improve. Like I said, Broderick Jones is a fantastic addition. Isaac Seumalo was a solid free agency signing. Mason Cole is a good enough center. Will do exactly what you need him to do. I think the skill group could be really, really good. Deontay, George Pickens, Allen Robinson could be a really great jump ball receiver for us. Freiermuth at tight end, Najee at running back. I think the skill group is in position to have a really good year and really help Kenny develop a lot in year 2. If, Matt Canada, improves the play calling, we get some good run game going with a better offensive line, we can really set up the play action and run that well with a multiple tight end set with Freiermuth and Darnell Washington, the 3rd-round draft pick. Zach Gentry's a big tight end. Connor Hayward's probably going to be the H-back in that situation. There's a lot of really talented guys that can play really well on this offense, and I think that will definitely support them. And I think the Steelers, honestly, big thing is they need to just, I'm going to bring up the stats right now, the Steelers just need to find their identity in the run game, which I think even, AJ, you don't watch many Steeler games, but I'm sure you realize that they didn't really have the greatest running
games. I just think their blocking last year was extremely bad.
Their run blocking was really bad. Their pass block win rate was actually pretty high, but the run blocking was really, really bad.
It was atrocious, and it gave no space for Najee Harris to do what he does best, which is see holes, hit the hole, and hit it hard.
Yeah, because the Steelers' 2 most run offense or run types last year were inside and outside zone, which works, but it's not perfect for the way Najee runs. They ran outside zone 21% of the time, which was 17th in the league, tied for 17th. And then inside zone 33% of the time, which was actually tied for 4th in the league. They ran some duo, and they were 31st and 30th in power and counter, which I think would be really good types of runs for Najee to run. They did have 10% of their runs go to jet sweeps, which was double the second highest in the league. I think this year with Calvin Austin not being injured anymore, he's really fast. He could be a great gadget guy on jet sweeps, but I think Matt Canada, if he's going to use jet sweeps, he needs to start doing what Sean McVay does. Sean McVay uses jet motion all the time for misdirection on counter and power, and I think if we use it that way, it could be really, really good. But honestly, and this is my opinion, I think, I want to see what you think of this. If we're going to get the most out of our run game, the Steelers need to do exactly what they did with Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell spent his first couple years running at like 240, and he was good, but he wasn't great. And then they had him drop down to like 225, 230, and they were running those kind of things and letting him just find the hole and hit it with speed, and he started performing like we knew him to perform in his prime. So I think, I get it, Najee's a big back. He's 6'1 or 6'2 or something like that. I believe he's a pretty big guy. But I think if he sheds a little bit of weight, I think he could really hit the gap well, and I truly believe that Anthony McFarland is a severely underutilized running back. He was like a 5th or 6th round pick out of Maryland a couple years ago, and he's really got the juice to get to the outside edge. Like if you want to run outside zone out of the gun, which is not a good idea by the way, but if you want to run outside zone period, he's got a lot more juice than Najee to get to the outside. He was their running back. He was also their kick returner. He was fast. He's really juiced up, and he's short, and he's got stout legs, and he really runs quick. So I think the Steelers could be a really, really solid team this year. I think the defense is in a good position to be the best part of this team, which will hopefully, also help Kenny grow on top of the fact that we've actually started building the offense better. So we'll see how it goes. I really believe that pretty much any spot in this division is interchangeable. I think any of these teams could have a really good season. The Steelers have, I want to say, one of the easiest schedules in the league this year, but the AFC North is just so difficult. So I guess we'll see how it goes. It's going to be an interesting season, and trying to think. Do you have anything on any OTAs or anything? Any new breaking news or anything?
Not really, other than DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe the Bills with Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Kind of throwing a temper tantrum. But I mean, can you blame them? I mean, at some point you just got to win playoff games.
Yeah, you do. And I do believe that the Bills are ultimately going to regress a little bit this year because of that lack of chemistry that they're experiencing currently. This is supposed to be the time where you're the best in terms of team bonding and stuff like that. It's early, it's off-season stuff, you're just installing. This is supposed to be the time when synergy is really high and you're building those team bonds, and they're kind of a mess right now. So I think it'll ultimately lead to a bit of regression for the Buffalo Bills.
I actually have a hot take about the Buffalo Bills I'd like you to hear me out on.
Have the microphone, sir.
Obviously, until about 3 or 4 years ago, Buffalo was kind of a dumpster fire. They didn't really know what they were doing. They finally got their first wild card berth in like 20-some years when the Bengals beat the Ravens on that amazing Tyler Boyd catch from Andy Dalton that still lives rent-free in my head. Back when they had Tyrod Taylor, before they even had Josh Allen. They brought in a man to fix the culture, and that man's name was Sean McDermott. And Sean McDermott has been a very serviceable coach. Great morale guy, great culture guy. Knows what he's doing defensively. But my hot take is that I think they need a change. I think they need more of an offensive-minded guy.
I have heard this.
I think Sean McDermott did an amazing job here. But if I was the owner and I looked at the roster and I thought to myself, we have a top 3 quarterback in Josh Allen. We have a top 3 receiver in Stephon Diggs. We have a good O-line, an all-around very solid defense with some stars like Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White, Ed Oliver. They have names. They have a ton of names. They know what they're doing defensively. Offensively, they kind of need to get they need to get together. They need Josh Allen to stop turning the ball over. They need more creativity in the run game because running up the middle with Devin Singletary and Nyheim Hines has not exactly been working for them for the last 2 years. The run game has been Josh Allen, which, when he's 6'5" and can take a hit, you're fine with that. But for how long? You need some explosiveness. I think what they should do is ride this year out with McDermott. And if they don't make it to the Super Bowl or win it, it's time for a change. And if I had to pick somebody to be the man for that change, it would be Eric Bieniemy, Exactly. He signed a 1-year deal, or was hired for a 1-year deal with the Commanders. And it was a smart move on his point. He wants to escape the Patrick Mahomes carried me allegations.
Yeah, the Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid thing.
Yeah. But he was responsible for most of their red zone stuff. I mean, he single-handedly figured out that motion, the type of motion that they used in the red zone in the Super Bowl, confused the Eagles' defense. So he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing offensively. And I think it's about time that the Bills either step up to the plate and finally hit a home run, or they put a new batter in the box. And maybe, this is conspiracy theorist, sign DeAndre Hopkins and Dalvin Cook. Get some players.
He wants to go to a Super Bowl team, doesn't he? He wants to go to a team that can compete.
Sign him. I mean, they need a true number 2. Gabe Davis is kind of a failed experiment almost. It's not like he's been a bum, but he's not been like a number 2 guy.
He hasn't performed like he did in that playoff game against the Chiefs.
Yeah, he's always good for like 2 games a year, and in those 2 games, he's putting up 137 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns.
Like against the Steelers.
Exactly, but if you're only getting that a game a year, you need another reliable receiver.
Yeah.
Send a contract to DeAndre Hopkins' way. I mean, he is still getting paid by the Cardinals, so money is not an issue.
No.
He's getting paid $12 million to not be on their roster.
Him and Cliff Kingsbury are both still getting paid.
Yeah. Cardinals disaster class.
Cardinals poverty class, dude.
And continuing with the jerseys, just fail after fail after fail.
The thing is,
What?
The fact that they were like, oh, we're going all in on this Madden game. The first release trailer for Madden 24, they didn't even update the Cardinals uniforms in the video.
Good. The old ones, they're old. They've been around for a while now.
So nice though.
They're still clean. Like, they still hold up.
The black ones were so hard.
Dude, they were. Especially with the new alternate black helmet. Like, it was clean. It was clean. But no, they're going to roll out these high school level jerseys that are just all plain one color. We did. We actually did. It's insane how bad that is. It's just common Cardinals disaster class.
Facts.
Only team in the NFL that makes the players pay for their food. You remember that survey that came out? We're just going to talk bad on the Cardinals now. That was awful. They were like the lowest ranked in like everything. Dude, their training room was like falling apart. The paint was chipping. The equipment wasn't working. Like, Cardinals disaster class. And I'm here for it.
We should probably wrap. This has been going for 50 minutes. We should probably wrap up.
I'm sorry about my Cardinals rant, everybody.
No, the Cardinals are trash. It's all right. Maybe in a couple episodes here, we'll whoever's on the show, me, Mike, and whoever else, we'll all get a little playoff predictor thing, and then we'll all go through the entire NFL and have our season predictions at some point. Have some way too early season predictions. We'll see how it goes. But it's been another episode of Boro Tailgate Talks. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Maybe Mike will show up next week and not go to a Pirate game instead. We will see you guys in the next episode.